focusing on college readiness rather than just language acquisition. So to give you a little bit of context, we are an urban campus. We're in the city of Reading in Pennsylvania. It's a small city. Our population is a little over 88,000, but Reading is known to be a poor city. Currently, I believe we rank the third poorest city in Pennsylvania. 31% of our city residents live at or below the poverty line. We have a 67% Hispanic Latino population, and 18% of our residents were born outside of the US. When it comes to the college itself, we are an open enrollment institution. We provide career training, as well as certificate programs, as well as associate degrees. We have an approximate total enrollment of 4,000 students. So again, it's a smaller school. But of those 4,000 students, 40% of our students are Hispanic Latinx. And so we are a federally designated Hispanic serving institution. Additionally, about 50% of our students are Pell eligible. Again, just showing you that a lot of the students at our institution are coming from poor homes. In our program specifically, English for Academic Purposes, our population is 80% Spanish speaking. 70% of our students are first generation. 35% are age 25 or older, so we do have quite a few non-traditional students. 59% of our students are caregivers, so that might mean that they have children of their own, that they care for ailing or elderly parents, or that they have responsibilities caring for siblings. And 50% of our students work 25 plus hours a week, sometimes going up to about 55 hours a week. So our students are really, really busy. They're juggling all of this as they're also trying to pursue a college degree and build up their English language proficiency. So English for Academic Purposes is a rather well-established program at our institution. We have been operating for about a decade in our current form. However, I would like to give you some history as to how it got started and how we got to where we are today. So starting in 2009, our program back then, which was called an academic ESL program, consisted of a course sequence of 33 credits and 110 mandatory hours spent in an English-only computer lab, where students spent most of their time engaged in computer-based grammar exercises. The students were very isolated. The grammar exercises were not contextualized. They were not very engaging. It was very much just kind of rote practice. The students in that program at the time spent way more time and credits and financial aid than their peers did on the developmental English track. Students would fail their academic ESL courses if they did not meet their lab hour requirements. So they could complete all of their assignments, they could even demonstrate competency, but if they didn't meet those hours that were required to earn the credits, they would fail the classes. They would have to repeat them. And because of all this, advisors would place English language learners and multilingual students into the mainstream developmental reading and writing courses because students just weren't getting through the academic ESL sequence. The trouble with that is that the instructors who taught the developmental reading writing didn't really know how to support the multilingual learners in their classrooms. And so even though the students there theoretically had a greater chance of getting through the sequence because it was shorter, they still weren't successful because they were with teachers who really didn't have the skills or the wherewithal to support them appropriately. So overall at this time, the academic ESL program had low enrollment, low student success, almost non-existent graduation rates, and just generally a negative perception campus-wide. So starting about 10 years ago, we did a complete overhaul of the program. And so I'll mention some of the highlights of what we did. First of all, one of the things that we did was we implemented what I'd like to call quality control over student placement. Basically, what this meant is that myself, our other full-time faculty member, we got much more heavily involved in the intake process so that when students applied to the college, we would consult with advisors on their placement. We would maybe review the results of student placement tests or read their writing samples to ensure accurate placement. We meet with the students ourselves, have conversations to assess their comfort level and proficiency with English. Basically, we want to make sure with each student coming in that they're appropriately placed. We don't want them in a course that is going to be too challenging for them, nor too easy so that they become disengaged. We also eliminated the required lab hours as part of earning the credits for the courses. And we reduced the number of credits in our English for Academic Purposes course sequence. And we did that in order to parallel the non-ESL or the mainstream developmental reading and writing sequence. That way, when students would come in and go to an advisor couldn't say to them, well, you're going to spend less time in this other track. So we're just going to put you where you will spend less time. Now that it's parallel, advisors can tell the students, you're not going to be delayed if you take EAP classes. You're going to be in these classes the same number of semesters as another student coming in who needs a little extra support with their reading and writing in developmental. A major change was in our curriculum. We standardized our EAP course curriculum so that every instructor is teaching them the same curriculum, the same major assignments, and we mentor those instructors. In this way, we can ensure that no matter what modality the students are learning in, if it's online, if it's virtual, if it's face-to-face, whether it's at night, during the day, our students are getting high quality instruction, and they're all being assessed on the same major assignments. Finally, we revamped that English only computer lab. We turned it into the Academic Literacy and Language Center. It is a study space and a tutoring center that serves all multilingual students at the college, regardless of their initial placement or current status. That means that our students who are multilingual, bilingual, English language learners can come to this center for tutoring support, whether they are currently in EAP classes, whether they have advanced into college level classes, or whether they were never even in EAP, but just feel like they need some more targeted language support from TESOL credentialed professionals. So when it comes to student impact, we have seen a lot of success. Like I said, we're an established program. We know that the changes we made have been effective and what we do works. In 2018, we were recognized nationally by Examples for Excellencia. We were a top 5 program in the community college category, specifically for increasing success of Latino students. Additionally, students who came through the EAP program make up about 10% of our college graduates annually, even though they only make up about 5% of our total population. Some recent numbers, 70% of our students persisted from spring 2022 to fall 2022. In our most recent completed semester, fall 2022, our students had an 83% average course success rate. So that includes students who failed or withdrew from the classes. So 83% of all students finished their courses successfully with a C or higher. And over a 5-year period, our average course success rate for students in the EAP program is 78%. So I know that's a lot of information. I will be happy to answer some more specific questions from you at the end of our session. But for now, I am going to hand it over to Dwenna to learn more about what she is doing.
Thanks, Alicia. I want to quickly say that I met Alicia about 1.5 years ago when I began my position here at CMC, and I was really inspired by her work. I saw their program on Excelencia's website, and so it's really an honor to be speaking with you today. So I'm really glad to be here. Again, my name is Dwenna Holden. I'm the program director of our ESL and HSE programs. And I just want to run through today system-wide change, because I was inspired by what Alicia's doing at RAC. We know that we need to change things here at CMC. And so I'm going to talk more about, like, what does it look like when you're in the middle of trying to change things up? So we're going to look again at system-wide change, the evolution of ESL and HSE for CMC, and a multilingual systemic support structure at our college. You can go to that next slide. Just a couple of things about Colorado Mountain College. We're pretty unique. We cover the rural, that's really hard to say, Rocky Mountain region. We've got 11 campuses that cover 12,000 square miles. We are in 8 counties, and we actually have the highest elevated college campus in the United States, which is a pretty cool distinction to have. That's the Leadville campus. It's at 10,152 feet. And I'm actually there today. We have an all-college event, and so I'm in Leadville. And so if you hear me getting a little out of breath as I speak, I'm not usually at 10,000 feet. I'm usually at 6,600 feet. So I'm a little higher today than normal. We are also a Hispanic serving institution, and that's a designation that we got in 2021. 27% of our enrollment is made up of Hispanic students. We serve 15,000 students annually, and we have nearly 2,000 students in our ESL and HSE programs. And those are we have non-credit programs right now. And so we, as I talk, I'll show you, we're going to be shifting into the credit space. But as I talk about the program as it exists now, it's in a non-credit space. And then within that program, we have a 60% self-identified Hispanic or Latinx group of students. So next slide. So why are we changing? We've got some pretty big motivating factors. Our ESL and HSE program is a top 10 program at our school. And so when we talk about, what I always find really interesting is when we talk about enrollment numbers at CMC, they never include students in my program because my students are non-credit. And so even though, you know, we have all of this statistics and demographic information about CMC, it doesn't include the ESL and HSE students. And so when we do include them, we're a huge program. We're a top 10 program at our school with nearly 2,000 students this year in our program. And we serve the rural communities in each of our areas, which are all very unique. This fall, we surveyed close to 200 students in the ESL program. And 95% of those students who were surveyed said that they desired to continue their education at CMC. And so that the way we asked the questions, it told us that they were interested in continuing their education beyond the non-credit programming that they were in presently. So we've got a 95% interest, but historically we only have a 2.8% matriculation rate from non-credit into credit. And so to me, that says we have a systemic problem. We have access problems. For matriculation rates to be that low, that points to problems in the system for us. So those are our motivators for change here. What's really beautiful about what we're doing is that we have this really pretty beautiful mission alignment going on. Call it luck, call it the universe, call it, I don't know what you call it, but I'm going to take it because this is allowing us to make the change we need to make. Last year, we were the recipients of a Lumina PACE grant, and the mission of that grant is to increase adult enrollment for underrepresented populations from non-credit programming to credit and degree programming. We also have something going on at our school called the Compass Initiative, which is basically redesigning our enrollment services, our student affairs systems, and we're moving towards a holistic advising model. And one of the main missions of the Compass Initiative is to increase ESL and HSE enrollment from non-credit to credit and degree programming. So same as the Lumina grant. And then our board of trustees and our strategic plan that was actually brand new, very shiny. It was just unveiled to the whole school this morning. One of the priorities in our new strategic plan is to prioritize ESL and HSE enrollment from initial contact. This is the language in the strategic plan. So that to us means students who are in non-credit programming to all the way through to completion for us, which means degree completion. And so these three things all have the same goal, are all going on at the same time. And so that allows me as a program director to be in a space where I can use the college's direction to drive this change in our program. And I just quickly saw a chat pop up. HSE stands for high school equivalency. So those are our GED pathways and our adult high school diploma pathways. You got it. All right, so the Lumina PACE team, like what did we do in the grant? It consisted of me. We had a representative from our strategic initiatives department, who's the manager of access and equity. We worked with Melinda Karp, who is the head of phase 2 advising. She was our consultant and did our qualitative research for us. And we also worked with our ESL and HSE faculty and staff and college-wide teams. And over the course of the last year, Melinda helped us to do interviews with college and staff college-wide. So for us, that means not just at one campus, it means across all 8 campuses where we offer ESL and HSE. So this is talking to a lot of people. She put together a really beautiful report for the college. We presented it and talked about the findings of the report. And really we were able to scan our whole system and evaluate what we're doing well, but how can we expand that to a college-wide space where all of our students are having a consistent experience, not just the ones who are lucky enough to find, the 1 or 2 bilingual advisors that we have. So those are the things that are driving this evolution. So really what it's all led up to is this evolution of our department. We've existed as the ESL and HSE department for quite a number of years now. And we're talking about, okay, well, if we want to have multilingual support across all systems of our college, across all campuses, how are we going to do that? It goes beyond just teaching ESL and HSE. We do more than that. So let's call ourselves something different. Let's rebrand, let's reorganize, and let's do these types of things. And so these are the sort of 4 buckets that we're organizing, the things that we're already doing but want to be doing on a college-wide scale into these areas. So we already have one person who's doing bilingual advising and bridging And by bridging, I mean helping students transition from ESL and HSE non-credit programming into credit programming and offering them academic support. And so we have people doing that at different levels. But you know, we are a big program, we're a big college. We need more than just one person doing that full time. And so this is, you know, an area where we want to scale these positions up, provide training across our campuses so that students can have this experience across the board, not just with the one person in our department. We also are looking at completely sort of redesigning and adding these English for academic purposes tracks for credit for our students. This also means providing credit classes that can be worked into programs as requirements so that we can work it into our SEPA space, our dual enrollment space, where students are taking college classes while they're in high school. We are going to create college-wide language support services, and please remember, for us, that means across 11 campuses. What does that look like? And we also have our adult high school diploma program pathway. This is new. This is a different pathway from GED, and it offers a much more accessible pathway for students. So these are the academic areas that are changing for us. We are going to have increased dual language credit programs. And so we have a dual language early childhood education program. We have business classes now for credit. They're going to be offered bilingually. And we even have education classes that are offered in Spanish. That's awesome. But then it brings up all these questions about assessment and placement. And so those are discussions that we are just beginning and know that we have to bring in outside experts and content area experts to help us build those programs. And lastly, the sort of evolution of our department will be to provide college-wide professional development for faculty and staff. How do you support students who are undocumented? What resources are there for financial aid? And sort of all of those questions for students and all of the needs that our students have. And so it's up to us then to provide that professional development for our faculty and staff. And so that's the last area that we have that sort of speaks to all these things that we're doing in pockets beautifully in our department, but we want to be doing college-wide across all of our systems here at CMC. So I believe that brings us to our last slide. We'd love to answer some questions. I know there are questions in the chat. You can also free to unmute yourself and ask a question. And I know that we have a chat moderator here to help us too.
Yes, hello, thank you. So one of the questions asked in the chat was, how many credits or classes is your EAP and the Parallel Development English program? And how are students placed into the programs, testing, self-assessment, etc.?
So currently, both our EAP sequence and our non-ESL developmental reading writing sequence consist of 3 semesters. So the structure is slightly different for both. In our developmental reading and writing program, the courses are actually integrated, or the classes are integrated, reading and writing together. Whereas in EAP, we actually separate them out because we know that our multilingual students can have different proficiency levels in the different language domains. So we frequently see, for example, a student who is much more proficient in their English reading than their English writing, right? Because input's a lot easier than output. And so we structure our EAP sequence that way so that students don't necessarily have to take classes at the same level. So in our 3 levels, a student might actually place into, say, our middle level writing, but our advanced level reading, because we don't want them to have to spend more credits in our program than is really necessary. As far as placement goes, we have experimented a lot over the years. COVID especially forced us to experiment with how we place students. We tried using multiple measures, which included looking at high school GPA and, asking students to placement test. What we found was that looking at high school GPA for students coming out of ESL in high school was just not an accurate indicator of what their English proficiency level was and how prepared they were for the rigors of college classes. So we ended up going back to placement testing. We ask all students coming in who identify as English language learners or who have ESL on their high school transcripts to take the placement test. And then from there, based on their placement test results, I'm looking, or my other full-time faculty colleague in the program is looking at those results. Again, having conversations with the students, consulting with their advisor, looking at their writing sample to make sure that placement is accurate. So I hope that answers those questions. If not, I'm happy to clarify something else.
Thank you. Another question we had in the chat is how many start but don't matriculate?
I'm not sure if that question's for me, but I know that the numbers that we have 28% who matriculate into the program, but then our graduation rate is less than 1%. So if that helps understand, we know that the persistence is not good. And that's on us. That's absolutely on us. That's not on our students. And so again, it's, for us, it's about systems. It's not about individual people. It's about people working in systems that are not serving our students. And so how can we change our systems to serve our students? We are focused on being a student-ready college instead of trying to make our students college-ready. And so that's a big shift for us.
And following that same thread of student ready, how does the bilingual advisor handle students who speak languages that they do not?
So I tried to answer that question in the chat because I was afraid we wouldn't get to it, but we do look at we're in a rural area and our primary our population speaks Spanish mostly. So that's where we're starting. We're starting at that sort of mass point where we can serve as many students as we can. And so we are focused on hiring people who are bilingual with English and Spanish. If we can have people like that on every campus, then we know that there's support on every campus instead of just siloed within ESL.
Thank you. And the last question that came in the chat is, what placement tests do you use?
Sorry, I should have clarified that earlier. We use Accuplacer and we use the ESL version of Accuplacer, but not all of the portions of the ESL Accuplacer test. We use ESL reading skills as well as the ESL prompts for the writing samples.
Thank you. And that's all the questions we have.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yes, thank you for attending our session.
Thank you. This was great. Thank you.
Thanks.